Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is FPC Radio Live. It is Wednesday, July 26th. And John, what do you know? We actually have some news, not just in the NFL, in the NHL as well. And actually, that's where we're going to start because, excuse me. Well, actually, first of all, we're going to start with I did not win the Mega Millions last night, FYI. Second, excuse me, I apologize. I just drank a sip of water right before we got on air here, and I swallowed it wrong. And I've been trying like hell not to break out in a coughing fit right now here on air. But Patrice Bergeron announced his retirement yesterday after 19 seasons, all with the Boston Bruins. And John, it was a let's just say it was an emotional roller coaster of a day for Boston sports fans because, you know, on the one end you have Patrice Bergeron announcing his retirement, and then on the other, Jaylen Brown signs his Supermax contract about 30 minutes after that. So, but we're going to talk about Patrice Bergeron here because obviously, this is a player that is going to go down as one of the greatest Bruins of all time. And this is a franchise that is nearing its 100th season in existence. So it's rich with history and I mean, great players. So many great players have come through this organization. So many have, excuse me, called the Bruins organization home for the majority of their careers and really kind of forged their legacy with the Boston Bruins. And only two other players, John, Ray Bourque and Johnny Busick, have played more games in the black and gold than Patrice Bergeron. And it's a sad day to see him hang it up because, I thought maybe we'd get one more season with him.
He played at a high level last year, right? He played, 78 of 82 games,
yeah.
Then he suffered that late season injury, missed the first 4 games against Florida, wasn't himself when he came back for games 5, 6, and 7. He could still play. He could go out there this year and still be a very effective player. Certainly one of the classiest individuals that we've ever seen play for the Bruins, Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Just
for any organization anywhere.
Well, he's one of those guys that, if you had a young kid playing hockey, you're like, just watch the way that guy plays. And play like he plays, right?
Watch how he exists. Player. Forget about how he plays, just how he exists as a human being.
Exactly. I just want to tell you a quick story. For a couple of years, 17, 18, 19, I was going into a lot of Bruins games with Bob Grime, who was our videographer at the Boston Herald, and also with Megan Ottolini, who was our videographer at the Boston Herald. And we'd go into the locker room after games, and the Bruins were always accommodating, win or loss. They were always there, answer questions. Bergeron leading the way as, the alternate captain at that time because Chara was still within the organization. And I just remember one game, we're walking out after doing the interviews, and it was a tough loss, and we had all of our equipment. And Bergeron was just ahead of us. He opened the door, looked back, and saw that we had all this equipment and held the door for us. Like, that's a little story, right? I mean, like, you would hope anyone would do that, but pro athletes don't necessarily do that. That just shows you the type of class act that Patrice Bergeron was throughout his entire career. I know that Jaylen Brown's probably a little upset because he agrees to a Supermax contract, and he's the second story in the city behind Patrice Bergeron. So Jaylen Brown's like, man, I got drafted in 2016. My selection got booed by Celtic fans. I've been in all these rumors about being traded. I finally have this big day. I'm going to sign a contract, and Patrice Bergeron retires. Don't you think the Bruins Celtics could have got together yesterday and said, let's, stagnate these announcements? Like maybe have Bergeron retire yesterday and Jaylen Brown sign, tomorrow, so they get a little bit more press for it?
The Bruins are the same organization that fired Claude Julien on was it the divisional round?
28-3 Super Bowl. 28-3 Super Bowl.
Oh, it was on the Super Bowl, right? I couldn't remember if it was right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what it was. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. Excuse me. They're not too concerned with not stepping on each other's feet. But no, I mean, look, this seems like someone pointed out that all the videos of Bruins teammates that talking about Bergeron's impact and all that stuff. It looked like it was filmed in May during exit day when, because they were all wearing those same things. So, the idea is that, like, if anything, at the least, he had pretty much gone about 95% towards a decision at that point. And maybe they realized, like, hey, let's while everyone's here, let's just do this just in case. Let's hope we don't have to use it, but they ultimately did. And look, I mean, again, you're not, when we talk about like how great of a player and a representation of an organization he was for this Bruins team, that would go without saying. Like, I mean, there's very rare number of athletes that have done that, that don't have a single blemish, and are quite possibly revered by just about every one of their peers. And it's someone brought up or asked a great question to some dunce yesterday on Twitter, who was going on and on about Patrice Bergeron being overrated and this, that, and the other. And excuse me, someone asked him, and he happened to be from Pittsburgh. Someone asked him to ask Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin what they think of Patrice Bergeron and see what they say. And I guarantee you, just as everyone else did, they would not be singing the same tune. I mean, this is the same guy that, like, again, was teammates with Sidney Crosby, on many Team Canada situations. Obviously, they went head to head in 2013, and guess what? Patrice Bergeron shut him down over a 4-game sweep over the Penguins. So there's a lot of mutual respect between the two players, and certainly Crosby would not echo the same things that this particular person happened to be saying. So, but when it comes to just players that are revered across their sport by just about everyone, and really, I can't think of one person that would say a bad thing about Patrice Bergeron, and that's pretty incredible when you think about. We've talked about this with Tom Brady before. Now, it's not as endearing to fans. Obviously, it's a very love or hate relationship with fans. But for the most part, you're not going to find anyone not named Antonio Brown that's going to say a bad thing about Tom Brady, and that's not common. There's very few athletes that we see that nowadays. So certainly that have been in the league as long as both of those players have.
Over that long stretch, absolutely, and even Brady, I think some of the fans kind of fell out of favor a little bit with Brady, because he became larger than life. I mean, Bergeron was a star in the city. Tom Brady was an international superstar, and he had the famous wife. It was a different narrative than the two different athletes.
And to be fair, obviously, as great as Patrice Bergeron was, he wasn't the greatest player in the history of his sport, as I feel, Tom Brady is. So there's a certain bigger spotlight when that is the case.
Right.
So,
and we're talking about an NFL quarterback compared to a center on a hockey team, which is still a regional sport. And it was, Sidney Crosby wanted Patrice Bergeron on his line during Team Canada. I mean, that's an incredible compliment, right? Like Sidney Crosby, I'm sure during Team Canada could have picked any of his line mates, and one of the players he wanted was Patrice Bergeron. That's an amazing compliment for a guy who we all agree has been the best player in hockey for a 10-year stretch until Connor McDavid took the title. I always throw Ovechkin in there because he scores so many goals. But, Crosby, the most respected and generally considered the best player in hockey for a 10-year stretch, wanted Patrice Bergeron on his line. So, just an amazing career, the way he handled himself on and off the ice. I was kind of hoping he'd come back for one more year. They need a center, and he's still playing at a high level.
They
so
need a
we're going
few.
to see what the Bruins are all about. They need a couple of centers because Krejci's not coming back either. So get your skates on, Ian. I know you're a goaltender, but, maybe open tryouts, see if you can man the center position.
No, there's a reason why I chose goalie the moment I decided to play hockey. And part of it was because I just had a natural instinct to go into net, and the other part was I just wasn't as let's say efficient on my skates outside of the crease. So No, I was a good skater. I just I wanted to be in the spotlight, John. That was me. I wanted the attention, and as a
You guys
goalie, you
are all
get that.
wired differently
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. Like I said, I mean, it's very similar. I liken it a lot to being a pitcher or like even a quarterback,
Uh-huh.
in that there is a lot that falls on your shoulders, and with all the praise comes, well, a lot of fault too, because, and I always said, like if you're a goalie and you make a mistake, guess what? 99 out of 100 times that means the puck's going in the net. Like if you're out
Yeah.
there on the ice and you're a forward or defenseman, you make a mistake, it doesn't necessarily mean that, and it could be forgotten in 10 seconds anyway. So I thrived off that pressure, John. So, but
You're a little like Ayn Rand,
yeah, there we go.
Atlas Shrugged, Ian
I
Shrugged.
I can't believe I ever read that whole thing.
So did Aaron Rodgers, apparently.
Yeah.
And he told us all about it a couple of years ago
Yeah.
with the one book on his mantle
Right.
during the Manning cast. He had to
I
let
forgot
us
about
know that he's much deeper and brighter than every other quarterback in the NFL.
What do they say? If you need to tell someone you're a king, you're not really a king. Well,
True.
it's kind of like that. And well, you know what? Look, all seriousness, I'm not going to take a pot shot at LeBron, because obviously, one of the kind of just awful stories of yesterday was
Mhm.
the news that Bronny James had a cardiac arrest. I mean, that's I saw it come up on Twitter amidst all this other news that was popping up throughout the day. And I had to look, and I was like, "Is this like a fake account?" But look, I mean, and first of all, anyone who's out there and you know who you are, and the people I'm talking about, who I'm talking about.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
Yeah. Well, just the people out there that are using this as some sort of way to drive an agenda, and I mean, it's just disgusting, and it's despicable, really, and it's really it should be about making sure that he's okay, and by all accounts he is out of intensive care and all that, so that's good, and that's a good sign. But yeah, just a wild story just to pop up, and like, wow, this kid who you would assume by all accounts is incredibly healthy, but again, I
Yep.
mean, this is the crazy thing about genetics. Some things we just can't explain. It's not
Yeah.
about getting
I
a
remember.
vaccine or this or that or the other. It's just sometimes we're just predisposed to certain things, and good. And luckily, he obviously he got through this, and hopefully going forward, he's going to be okay.
All I could think of was Hank Gathers, Reggie Lewis. I mean, Hank
Yep.
Gathers was built like an NFL tight end, and we saw him collapse and die on the basketball court. Reggie Lewis was, a prime athlete, and sometimes we don't know what's going on with the heart. It's a very complicated organ. Let's hope that Bronny's okay, and that the big thing here is, and it happened with Reggie Lewis, is you end up getting like 3 different opinions, and then you just listen to the opinion you want to hear. And when one of the doctors will say, well, you're good to go, and that's why the decision has to be made by LeBron or Savannah, Bronny's parents, and make a family decision and go forward. Because the one thing I like so much about Bronny is he seems really well adjusted, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here's someone who's a bright young guy, doesn't throw it out there that, hey, I'm LeBron James' son, so I can do whatever I want. He seems like he's got his act together and is smart. So, if he's not able to play basketball, maybe he goes to law school or business school or gets involved in his dad's businesses. I think he's going to be successful. But yeah, that was just a jarring story when you hear that 18-year-old going into cardiac arrest during a workout.
Yeah, and like, look, I will take every opportunity in the world to pick at LeBron James, but I'll never ever say anything about him being a father, because I mean, there's no doubt about it that he's been as successful, if not more than that, on the basketball court. When you lose as many finals appearances as he has. Sorry, John. I was praising him too much. I had to throw something in there.
Okay, but, Rob Parker.
Yeah. hey, knock it off. All right.
I called those guys a couple weeks ago.
What, Rob Parker?
A couple weeks ago, Rob Parker and Chris Broussard. I actually like their show because it's they're about my age, so I like some of their, pop culture references. They're talking about like The Odd Couple, which is the name of the show, and all sorts of weird stuff that I laugh at that most other people are like, what are these two guys talking about? And I just gave a big shout out to Joe Gibbs because they were talking about Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. And I just wanted to remind them that Joe Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks.
I'm sure Rob Parker had a very, very logical and practical take on Bill Belichick. I'm sure
he likes Belichick because he doesn't like Brady. Like,
okay, all right. So he's
kind of like Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless loves Brady and constantly knocks Belichick. Like, you got to pick one or the other, right? When you're on national TV, rather than giving both credit. Although I'm a Brady guy over Belichick without question. But maybe not to the degree that, say, Skip Bayless is. But, yeah, it was a fun conversation. They liked the call, so,
No, hey, good for them.
I call it Bob and Winthrop or whatever.
No, I got blocked by Rob Parker a long time ago on Twitter or X or whatever the hell we're calling it now, which is, look, we don't have enough time for me to get into my thoughts and feelings on Elmo and X and I'm gonna buy Jacuzzi and rename Jacuzzi. Okay, that's the idea. That. Yeah, you like that?
That sounds really good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're taking a brand that is some people call spa tubs jacuzzis because, well, that's what they think they actually are called, when that's actually a brand name. Think about having that sort of brand equity and just throwing it out the window for something as generic and as apparently as copyrighted as the letter X, because apparently every corporation has it copyrighted in some form or fashion. So,
and X is like if you're illiterate, right? Like you can't write your name, just put an X down. So I guess that's what's going towards what we're trying to appeal to when it comes to Twitter. Can we suspend Elon Musk from Twitter? Like, is there someone that can do that? I know he owns it. But that would be pretty cool if he got suspended for his nonsense yesterday about the vaccine, and that's what led to, Bronny.
Oh my God! See, I didn't even see that. Oh my goodness!
Oh yeah, that's where he went. Oh, that's exactly where he went.
Yeah. Look.
Evil Musk is what I call him. What a despicable human being.
He is, and I think the only good thing about this whole Twitter thing, and I think it will be the only good thing, is that I think it's pulled back the curtain, so to speak, on who he is. Because, there's still hordes of his. I've used this word already once today, but sycophants. Like, there's hordes of them still out there, but. I think the general perception of him being some sort of deep thinking genius are complete for any logical thinker should be completely out the window, because this guy is far from that, in my humble opinion. So, but anyways, we're going to leave it at that, because I don't want to get worked up this early.
Back to Patrice Bergeron.
No, Patrice Bergeron, the exact opposite of Elon Musk. I would trust Patrice Bergeron with my life. I barely trust Elon Musk with my password to Twitter. So, anyways, the NFL was obviously probably pretty jealous that the NHL and the NBA kind of stole their thunder a little bit yesterday with some bigger news, but didn't take them long. We got a handful of extensions signed yesterday. Top of the list, your guy, Mr. Justin Herbert. Highest paid player ever, biggest contract ever, 262 million, 62.5 million, all that stuff. So, thoughts, concerns, expected, surprised?
Well, I'm surprised that the Chargers went ahead and did this, because they're one of the cheapest franchises in all of football. Now we're waiting for probably the cheapest franchise in football to extend their great young quarterback in Joe Burrow, who is better than Justin Herbert. Mm-hmm. I would assume that Burrow's going to get 5 years, 275, 280, and deservedly so. He's sensational. We're both huge fans of his. But, yeah, I was surprised that the Chargers did this. But you have to, right? You don't find these guys very often. And the Chargers, in some sense, have been fortunate over the years. You had Dan Fouts for a decade, Philip Rivers for 15 years. Now you've got Justin Herbert. They haven't won a Super Bowl. The Bengals have had a litany of really good quarterbacks, whether it's Kenny Anderson, Boomer Esiason, Carson Palmer. Now they have who I believe will be their best quarterback in Joe Burrow. But Yeah, really not a surprise in the sense that it had to get done, but you always, in the back of your mind, think that I still call them the San Diego Chargers, the LA Chargers are going to screw this thing up, right? Because they're having problems with Austin Eckler right now, trying to get him signed, and we see what he's contributed over the years. And the Chargers are always like the last team to sign their draft picks. They're just a really, really weird franchise. They don't have great cash flow. They still owe the NFL, I believe, $700 million for the relocation fee, which they haven't started to pay. But no, Herbert's a sensational quarterback. My only concern with Herbert is he's been about the same each of his 3 years. I haven't seen growth in those 3 years. So is this what he's going to be going forward? Whereas we see Burrow get better every year. We see Trevor Lawrence from year 1 to year 2 grow immensely when, of course, you add Doug Peterson as his head coach and you give him some weapons. Is Herbert flatlined? Is he going to continue to get better, or is this what he is? But nonetheless, he's still a top 7, 8 quarterback, and they had to do this to remain relevant.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was definitely disappointed by last season. Kind of, the growth was a bit stagnant, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I mean, this is a franchise that I believe is, cursed. I don't know what it is, voodoo, whatever, but, the Chargers just kind of like the Angels, just as much talent as they have, you never really take them seriously. And look, I mean, if you're the Chargers owner, you're thinking, okay, great, we have a franchise quarterback that buys you a lot of leeway when it comes to failing. If you fail, at least you have a quarterback. It's not like you ever notice that if you're an organization that fails with a great quarterback, yeah, there's pressure and there's obviously, doubts and whatever talked about. But if you're failing with a litany of terrible quarterbacks, you're just a laughing stock and no one takes you seriously. So the perception is at least they have a quarterback, a franchise quarterback. So hopefully if you're a Chargers fan, you know, they're not content with that. But yeah, I do want to see Herbert kind of take a step forward this year, clean up the turnovers, be a little bit more efficient with the football. And look, I mean, this is just the going rate with quarterbacks right now, it is what it is. I mean, when Joe Burrow signs his extension, eventually it's going to be bigger than that. So, but look, I'm with you. It had to be done. You kind of figured that it was going to get done sooner or later, and he was the first shoot a drop. So, on the flip side, go ahead.
And that contract doesn't go into effect for another 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So 2025. So by then, the salary cap's going to probably be $250, $275 million. So it'll represent 20% of their salary cap, which is what you want to be at a quarterback, maybe a little bit less. Burrow, Jalen Hurts has already re-signed with Philadelphia. Tua, at some point, if he remains healthy, will re-sign. And we can look at that 2020 NFL draft for the quarterback position and say, holy crap, that's really good, because you're talking Burrow, Tua, Herbert with three of the top 6 picks, and then Jalen Hurts in the second round. That's a phenomenal draft class in terms of quarterbacks.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like as these careers play out, that's when we're going to get the bigger, and as they go, it's like, okay, yeah, it's looking like a pretty good crop. I mean, we talk about that 2003 class all the time. Roethlisberger, Rivers, and Eli Manning, and that's I'm sorry, 2004. What did I say? 03?
Yeah, 03, 04. Yeah, and you got 4 Super Bowls out of those 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah,
right? Pretty good.
Yeah, not too bad at all. So, but anyways, on the
83 was the greatest.
Oh yeah, I mean
quarterback draft ever. But you got 2 Super Bowls out of that, but you got 10 appearances with Elway, Kelly, and Marino, and it was just at a time, Ian, that the NFC dominated.
Yeah,
the NFC won 15 out of 16 Super Bowls, so almost didn't matter who was going to the AFC; they were going to get throttled by the NFC.
Right. I mean, now Elway and Kelly, between the two of them, went to 9, one less than Tom Brady, which is incredible.
Yeah, I know. He went to as many as all 3 of those guys combined, right?
Yeah,
Marino, Kelly, and Elway. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh man, I always love when we bring it around and back to Tom Brady and some sort of positive thing. So
I texted this to you last week that one of the most amazing stats about Brady, obviously he's number 1 in all-time wins.
Yeah,
for quarterback. He's 16th in losses. which to me is amazing considering how much he played.
Yeah.
Like the top 3 in losses are like Eli Manning, Brett Favre, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Philip Rivers, all these guys that are great quarterbacks, right? All going to be in the Hall of Fame or borderline Hall of Famers. He's 16 in losses, and he played forever. That to me, well, it's almost like Barry Bonds didn't strike out a lot. Like you look at the all-time strikeout leaders for hitters. It's a lot of the all-time great sluggers, and then Bonds is way down the list because he didn't strike out much. It's like the guy never lost.
Right. And like it's things like that don't really get brought up. That that disparity, that discrepancy is it's not standard. And it's like again, generally quarterbacks that play a lot and win a lot are also going to lose a significant amount. And relative to how much he won and what the other quarterbacks comparable to him did, it's way below average. So. But anyways, I was going to say Trevon Diggs signed a big contract yesterday with the Cowboys, $97 million. A lot of big money being thrown around. Really great cornerback. Obviously, he can have a penchant for being burned, but sometimes you take that with the risks you take. I keep thinking back to that Patriots and Cowboys game from a couple years ago, perhaps one of the best Mac Jones games so far in his young career. Unfortunately, in a loss in overtime, but nonetheless, it was still a really, really fun, exciting game. I guess I'll do a little compare and contrast, and I think I know the answer, maybe because of the conference, but who knows? The two teams, the Chargers, the Cowboys, they're kind of in the same boat, right? Always high expectations, never living up to them. And it's been like that for years. Obviously, the Cowboys have the history. The Chargers don't. So Cowboys fans obviously can fall back on that and whatnot and kind of live off that for a while. So both of these teams have quarterbacks. Both of these teams have pretty good offenses, pretty good defenses. Which team do you think is closer to potentially winning a Super Bowl?
Cowboys. The conference is weaker. The NFC is. They play in the division. Yes, Philadelphia looks like a powerhouse, but there's not been a repeat division winner in the NFC East since the Eagles did it in 2004. So I'm actually picking the Cowboys to get to the Super Bowl against the Bengals and lose to the Bengals because the NFC, I think, is so weak. I think the Cowboys have a real opportunity. They added Stephon Gilmore, who gives them a outstanding second cornerback. Brandon Cooks can give them an excellent second wide receiver. If the offensive line holds up, and I know Zach Martin is holding out at this point, so they've got to figure that out. And an all-time great offensive lineman. I think the Cowboys are going to be really, really difficult. I also have to wonder if Trevon Diggs' brother, Stephon Diggs, is now upset at his own brother for signing this contract because it seems like Stephon Diggs is upset about everything.
Yeah,
whenever someone's
kind of a curmudgeon.
He might just be even mad that his brother just signed this long-term deal. And if you remember Hard Knocks a couple of years ago, man, you talk about brothers that are completely different. I mean, Stephon Diggs is a personality and a half, and I love him. I think he's a great receiver, plays hard. I think he's a winner, all of that stuff. But, like you said, he can be a curmudgeon. Trevon Diggs seems like the coolest guy in the world. And then a lot of Hard Knocks, for a couple of the episodes, we saw his 4 or 5-year-old son, who may be the cutest kid in America. It was just so fascinating to watch. So I kind of root for him because he seems like a really good dude. But, yeah, I mean, he's a top-flight cornerback. He's a playmaker. He does get burned occasionally, but he's a guy who can create turnovers and take it back to the house. And that can flip a game, obviously. But I would say the Cowboys more so than the Chargers because of the conference is so much stronger in the AFC. And also you're in the same division with the Kansas City Chiefs. Like,
right.
Chance that you're going to win a division? Are you going to get a bye at some point? The thing is, the Chiefs have the best record in football in the regular season the last 2 years. The Dallas Cowboys have the second most wins in the NFL the last 2 seasons in terms of the regular season. They went 12-5 both seasons. So, they've had good regular seasons, just can't quite break through in the postseason. They lost 2 really close playoff games last year. I think if Dak was better, they would have beaten San Francisco last year. And who knows what would have happened against Philadelphia because they play them tough. But they could be sitting on a really good season. But there's always so much expectation with the Cowboys. It almost feels like they can only fail.
Yeah, and here's the thing: the Cowboys' biggest concern might actually be Dak Prescott, because if he's going to play like he did in the second half of the season last year, where he kind of turned into a turnover machine, then it doesn't matter what they did on defense and what they do on offense and all this other things. They're not going to win. They're not going to win a Super Bowl turning the ball over that much. So, yeah, I'm with you. I do think the Cowboys are closer. Doesn't mean I have confidence in the Cowboys, because I think Justin Herbert's a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. I think.
Yep. I feel confident in saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say at least. I think Herbert. I think there's more. Let's say
physically he's better.
He's physically, better and I think he has a higher potential. You know what I mean? I think we've seen enough of Dak Prescott to know who he is as a quarterback and what he is at his best. I don't know if we've seen the best out of Justin Herbert. I don't think so. And I think that's probably making me lean towards right now Justin Herbert, on top of just in the present, in the now, being, I think, a little bit better of a quarterback. I think that added what if, and if he continues to grow, potential adds to it. So, yeah, I do think the Chargers have the better quarterback, but, at the same time, I don't think either team is particularly close. Even the Cowboys and what I believe is, like you said, the weaker conference in the NFC. So, yeah, it's obviously going to be interesting to see how that all plays out, and we see how Justin Herbert responds after the contract, and if Dak Prescott can rebound, and the competition in both respective divisions. But training camp is just coming up, and teams are opening up as we speak, and we're sooner or later, John, we're going to be right in the thick of things. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And as far as the Chargers and Cowboys, to just kind of put a bow on it, there is some sort of connection there, because Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator with Dallas, now the offensive coordinator with the Chargers. So, we'll get to see both of those quarterbacks having the same offensive coordinator at some point. So we'll see if Justin Herbert can grow a bit and get Brandon Staley out of the way as much as you can, right? Because neither one of us is a fan of his as a head coach, but the Chargers are so cheap that they keep retaining a head coach long beyond his shelf life, because they just don't want to pay two head coaches, one that's actually working and one that's unemployed. So Herbert, to me, is a better quarterback. Physically, he's got a better arm. I mean, there's throws he makes out there that look like Dan Marino. I mean, he's got that type of offensive talent. And, he's kind of at the same level, I'd say, with Trevor Lawrence. I think those two guys are very comparable, big quarterbacks that both can move, that do a lot of nice things. And all I can remember is always Justin Herbert having a 27-0 lead in the wild card round last year and losing the game 31-30. You can't have that happen.
Yeah,
you can't have that happen.
That's definitely a tough one. So, all right, that's gonna do it for us here today. Like I said, I did not win the Mega Millions yesterday, so I will be back tomorrow. Powerball's not that big yet, so it's not the it's not quite the FU money that I'm looking for. But nonetheless, we will be here tomorrow to well, hey, who knows? Maybe we're gonna another string of NFL deals signed today. So, anyways, that's gonna do it. We will be back. Give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. Of course, head over to fullpresscoverage.com and fullpresshockey.com and check out all the latest and greatest. So, thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.